Hey Orville fans, it's time for our panel from this year's 2024 San Diego Comic-Con, Things Left Unsaid, a discussion on Season 4. And as you can see, I'm in the Grand 10, and we're getting ready for our panel. And it starts right now on the Weekend Geeks. Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, panelists.
Morning, Justin.
Morning, Justin.
I feel like I'm in a classroom. So welcome to our year 2 of our Orville fan panels, Things Left Unsaid, and Orville Season 4 discussion. I'm so glad you're here. You can cheer. You can cheer. You can applaud, whatever. Put on by my website, the Weekend Geeks. I would like to welcome my esteemed colleagues that are giving up their time to be here. I'm going to first mention that our friend Marcia Middleton, who normally is my counterpart on these, she was unable to make it. She's not here, but we definitely wish her the best. Hopefully she'll be back next year. She said 20 years of doing fan panels, first year she's ever missed. But I have joining me today is Owen, Mike, and Elyse, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your favorite Orville character, and your favorite sci-fi show.
Orville character would probably be Bortus is hilarious, but also Scott Grimes' character is super cool too. That's my top 2. Favorite sci-fi, new or old?
Any.
The Orville's really good. Sliders is awesome. That's a great show. Oh, nice. Let's see. I run scifiction.com. All sci-fi goodness is about it.
My name is Mike Richards. I'm a podcaster for the Roddenberry Podcast Network, co-host of Mission Log The Orville. Been around since covering the show since 2021. We got caught up between seasons 2 and 3 so that we could cover season 3 in real time. Favorite character from the Orville? I'm going to go a little outside the box and say Admiral Halsey. I think his leadership, his mentorship, the wisdom that he provides, the guidance that he provides the rest of the crew is really, really outstanding. And Victor Garber just knocks it out of the park. Favorite sci-fi series of all time? I'm a Star Trek fan. That was my gateway into science fiction. And I started following John Champion over here with Mission Log, the flagship podcast of the Roddenberry Podcast Network. And we became friends, and we had an opportunity to collaborate with Mission Log The Orville. He offered me a chance. I took it not knowing what I was getting myself into, but man, am I glad I did. It has been an absolute blast. That leaves me to hand it over to...
My name's Elyse. Hi. So I made a 2D Orville game, which is available on itch.io, and I'm making a 3D kind of pixel voxel game with some of the fans included as characters. Favorite sci-fi, I would obviously have to say the Orville. I also want to say Game of Thrones, but I'm not sure if that's sci-fi, kind of, fantasy. And favorite character, I'd say Bortus.
Nice.
Yeah.
Bortus, that's good. My name is Justin Toney. I'm a big fan of the Orville, Star Trek, and all of the above, and just really pleased to be here this weekend. I don't have much to say about myself. Lifelong Star Trek fan. That's about it. Bortus is my favorite.
Yeah.
Favorite scene is the cigarette scene. Absolutely.
I'd like to, within that episode, Clyden at a certain point was in the airlock smoking. Now, with all the BS that we put up with Clyden, I was like, dude, you have him in the airlock. All you have to do is push the button.
Pull an expanse there and space him out in space.
So I originally started this panel because I had an idea after Mike issued out a tweet. It's my thoughts about how the Orville came to be and what it is. Since its inception, the Orville has become a cultural phenomenon, enticing viewers from around the world to join the Planetary Union. In its quest, the Orville has brought together audiences of all walks of life, political viewpoints, and religious beliefs to discuss political-nomical, I invented a word, issues in an engaging and inviting format. They can annoy everybody in the show. What started as a mere comedy in space has transpired to a story which might rival that of Gene Roddenberry's Wagon Train to the Stars. From comedy to serious science fiction, many can agree that the Orville has done what others haven't, provided a meaningful adventure filled with amazing characters and storylines. It brings us to the ultimate question: why hasn't the Orville's adventure has been allowed to continue. And that will bring me to the tweet. This is the news you've been waiting for, folks. Our sources confirm that the Orville is renewed for season 4. I like it. But Mike, you have another story to share.
Well, we are lucky enough to have an amazing relationship with the creative staff in particular at the Orville. We've had a number of writers, producers, composers on the show to chat with us, and they are very supportive of what we do. And again, it's that mission log format where we watch every episode, break it down, look at some lighthearted observations, get into some big ideas, and then kind of what we look at is like, does this hold up as a spiritual successor to Star Trek? Does it live up to that Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy? But we're not going to do that today. What we're going to do today is we're going to look back and think about things. We're going to look at season 4. So we were chatting with several of our contacts a few months back, and they said Disney did pick up the Orville for season 4, but with the writer's strike and with the timing of things, Seth had already signed a deal with Universal Content Productions, NBC Universal's production arm, to create some content. That contract needs to be fulfilled before the Orville can be revisited. But that contract does have a carve-out that says once that content is produced, then they're free to revisit the Orville. But Disney did pick up the Orville for season 4. That was stated to me as fact. And it was also stated to me that they couldn't say anything because of, I'm speculating here just a little bit, that NBC Universal doesn't want an announcement coming out that's going to promote a rival studio while that chief creative is working there. So our sources said they cannot say anything, but boy, it'd sure be nice if you guys did, because that would give our fans, some good news and something to look forward to.
So was it Seth himself that?
I cannot say.
That's ultimate speculation. I mean, when you think about it, who I would hope that Seth would leak something like that. I would hope so, but then it could be anybody. It could be someone on the cast, it could be a crew member.
Yeah, and we're lucky we were not ever asked to sign an NDA. It was just a an agreement between two people that we've been treated very well, by the Orville writ large. I mean, we've had such good good communication with them that when we were asked, like, hey, you can say this, but please don't say where it came from. I can't say where it came from.
You can't say. So I would like you all to tweet Seth MacFarlane, tell him who you think may have, I don't know. Maybe not. But the most important thing is that you, number one, you voice your frustration with the fact the Orville's not on. Number two, you say that you really want to see that. And you do something like B. Joe Trimble and her husband did way back in the 60s, is you start, maybe not a letter writing campaign, but you go
social media,
start a petition, start whatever you can. New Voyages, Strange New World, start it with, every year I've done that.
Phase 2.
Every year. But starting a campaign like that gives people an opportunity and lets studios know that you're interested. Watch the shows, buy the merchandise if there's any available.
Yeah. Stream it, tell your friends, family.
Tweet it, post it, click it, share it, everything.
Share it.
Yeah, it's very much kind of an automated system, right? The algorithm that looks into these things, and it's got many different multifaceted programming that it looks at. But I think minutes, hours of time that it's streamed is number one, and we can all leave it looping in the background, but getting more eyeballs on it, more people to watch it and appreciate the show for what it is. Justin, I wanted to comment real quick on what you read before.
Yes.
Do you remember who wrote that, or where that? Did you write that?
I wrote that. Yes.
That was
Yes.
beautiful.
That was really good.
That was, and it really sums it up, because we all started looking at the Orville early on as kind of Seth's version of Star Trek, right? And with some Family Guy-esque Seth MacFarlane branded comedy baked into it. But what we realized is, not only does it have those morals, meanings, and messages, not only does it send and get a message, but give us something to think about. And it often doesn't give us us the answer. It just poses the questions. That it does it very well, but it also has become its own thing. I think it is sort of. The word parody has been thrown around. It's clearly not a parody.
It's its own universe.
Yeah, the word comedy has been thrown around. There are some comedic elements to it.
So last year we asked the question, is The Orville the greatest science fiction show in television? We did not answer it. I had to go back on social media after that and think about it and say, no, we never did. It is a great show.
Yeah.
And all of this ties in the fact that The Orville is treading waters that no other show has done. I feel like when Seth pitched it, he went in with, I'm going to start out as comedy, but my ultimate goal is I want real sci-fi.
Much like Roddenberry did with Wagon Into the Stars, and kind of used the lens of science fiction to promote all the cool stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Or they just marketed it that way as well, because he already had that brand behind him, so it was easier to reach that audience, probably.
Yeah, and Gene did what Gene did well. Gene was an action-adventure Western writer. We're covering that on Genealogy, his pre-Star Trek work right now on the Roddenberry Podcast Network. And it's fascinating to see the evolution of how he wrote. But he took what he knew, right? And he knew Westerns, and he knew action, and he knew adventure. And he did that to look at things, to kind of take that and then put it in a position where you could look at issues from a global perspective. And that's, what Gene did with Star Trek. Seth, as a comedy writer, as a satirist, as somebody that can really kind of take, human behavior and take it to that extreme, ridiculous level till you realize how inappropriate some of this behavior is, and look at that from a global perspective. He's using comedy and satire to do the same thing that Gene did with action and adventure.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
That brings me to a question. What makes The Orville special as a show that has allowed it to have such a cult following in just 3 seasons? In just 10 episodes or so of each season? What has given it that option? Owen, start with you.
I think laying the foreground, we talked about Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek. I think by having that show, coming up on the 60th anniversary of that, and of course Seth himself was a big fan of Star Trek, using that as kind of an example of his inspiration. Of course, he used comedy, he used his lens of comedy. That gave and of course science fiction in general, that gave a foundation to build upon. And of course, since people like sci-fi, and it's kind of homages in some form, if you're a Trekkie, which I am as well, that makes it where they want people to watch it more, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's drawing from several different things. It had a Family Guy, American Dad, Million Ways to Die in the Old West crowd, sort of willing to follow Seth wherever he went. It also had Star Trek fans. Remember in 2017, we had the Kelvin universe. There was no Star Trek on TV since 2005 with the end of season 4 of Enterprise. So I think there was some clamoring for that. And what we saw as Star Trek being produced, remember, it premiered around the same time Discovery did. Season 1 of Discovery had a very dark tone. Season 1 of The Orville had a very Star Trek Next Generation tone. Lighting, Marvin Rush as the director of photography. If you remember, the Jonathan Frakes directed an episode, Robbie McNeil directed an episode, Mike and Denise Okuda did artwork. So that was the place for Star Trek fans of, say, the Berman era to go and get something that resembled what they knew and loved, in addition to watching the stuff coming out of Paramount Plus. So it had different audiences baked in, and it could pull from different sources. And I think that's where folks that may not have given the show a shot gave it a shot because of where they were coming from and found something that was more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that there was a hole or a gap that needed to be filled where we can watch something that's entertaining and sci-fi, but also speaks to issues of our time and has a philosophical element to it. And I think that we like learning whilst being entertained as well. So I think that's why it did so well.
Plus, if you look at some of the promotional marketing for Seth that did interviews, he had mentioned that he was trying to do the hopeful, more aspirational, like the early seasons of TNG, like you mentioned before.
Yeah.
Can I throw in one more thought?
Sure.
Because one of the big differences that we see between, say, Next Gen and the Orville is the fallibility of the people, right? The characters on Next Gen are very aspirational. I would love to be like Picard, right? I would love to be like Geordi LaForge. I would love to be that together in my job. I would love to be that organized, even though, Picard has dozens of pads laying around his desk. There's a certain evolution, a certain aspirational aspect to those characters. The characters on the Orville are relatable, right? They make mistakes. There's petty jealousy. There's passive aggressiveness between their characters. There's things that we do now. They work their way through those things, and they're better because of it, because by the end of the episode, they've worked their way through that. But I can see myself more in these characters than in Next Gen, although they have the distinction of being who we aspire to be. I see myself more in the characters of the Orville, and I think that leads to that kind of cult following.
Yeah.
But can you see yourself as Ed taking a ship out to go check on Kelly and cloaking himself so that she can't see him in the bedroom?
We can't relate to that.
Can you relate?
I think the statute of limitations is probably up by now,
Yes,
but
sir.
I
Yes,
will
sir.
I will answer that with a strong no comment.
I would like to hear we have to have audience discussion. We have to. So anybody have any comments about what makes the Orville special for them? Yes.
No, I totally echo what you're saying. I mean, in terms of the actual relatability and whatnot, I actually feel that, and I think this also goes for Stranger Worlds as well, that it's taking along with Deep Space Nine in terms of the character development and whatnot. I think that's why, in my personal opinion, I think DS9 is the strongest of the Star Trek shows because it's so character-focused and whatnot, and I think that's what the Orville really honed in on, is that every character or every crew member in that gets their due in that show. And I think that's really important, so it's a good point that you make.
That's a great point, and if there are Star Trek fans in the audience and you've overlooked Deep Space Nine, a bunch of folks went straight from Next Gen to Voyager, please revisit Deep Space Nine. It is a phenomenal piece of work.
One of the best written as far as developing characters, and that's where we started seeing in television the change to story arcs and multi-episode
Deep Space Nine was
storytelling.
amazing. You got all the characters. I mean, you got Cisco, his son, Odo, Kira. They all have their own kind of. And plus, it's in that setting is kind of like in a kind of a wartime setting of
Yes.
sorts. So they're having to deal with struggles and all these different things going on. Whether like Next Gen and the Orville, even those battle scenes, there's not a full-blown war going on all in the whole thing.
Yes. I think we have another comment.
I was just going to say, the brevity and the imperfectness that these people show on the cast of Orville and how their antics and silliness, I really appreciate.
And that just goes back to great character development from the beginning, and knowing where he wanted to go and writing these characters to evolve into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and conversations with Seth, I mean, he wanted the show, yes, to be sci-fi, yes, to be able to kind of look at the human condition from a global perspective, but he also wanted those scenes where it could just be two people in a room talking, right? Ed and Kelly in the bar, at Muska's, wherever, just the mess hall, just talking about an issue and just raising the questions, not giving answers, just raising the questions. And, for something like that, it doesn't matter if it's a police procedural, a medical drama, or a science fiction show like this, and that's the relatability of the characters that he's strived for.
Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's very lighthearted,
Yes,
serious issues with lightheartedness is nice.
I'd like to move on to ask the question. Where do we stand with issues such as Ed's daughter and the other children that are on board? The hand-holding at the end of season 3 between Ed and Kelly. Does Borda smoke more cigarettes? Does he develop cancer? I mean,
Maybe vape.
I'm sorry, that was my favorite in the whole series. It's like I've been standing my whole life and I only now just sat down, that kind of thing. Let's discuss this and other ideas of what's left over that needs to be brought over for season 4. What needs to happen with those story arcs?
Well, I think maybe Borders can try vaping. That would be funny.
I can only imagine that.
Yeah.
Well, the Ed had his daughter. I would like to see, what was the episode where he kind of got to see her and he didn't get to see her, right? At the end, he had to leave.
Yes.
Maybe cool to get to be reunited with her, and maybe they had, well, spoilers, you've probably already seen it, but they killed the leader of the Krill in that episode. Before that, maybe there's some way they can merge the Krill and unite them. Like what they do in Star Trek with the Klingons and the Federation. Maybe there's some kind of, like what they're originally trying to do before the Emperor was killed or whatever.
It really does. That whole art touches at your heart because, you have a child that he didn't know about, and he finds, and then there's this strife in there. It's so. I have to know, does it get resolved? I need that resolution in my life.
It definitely needs to be resolved. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love it. I love that they revisited with Ed writing letters to Anaya later on, just kind of as a mention to bring that up. But we would love to see some resolution there or some continuity there. I don't think we're done with Talea. I think Michaela McManus is just too strong an actress, too strong a character to walk away from that, and seeing that transition from school teacher to evil dictator, autocrat, coup d'etat perpetrator was pretty amazing, and I'd like to see that. Talked about the other children. You're talking about Marcus and Ty. Marcus is probably about 30 right now. He is a grown man, which is amazing. But I'd love to see them back, maybe in a more official capacity as part of the crew.
Yeah.
Kai Wenner is an awesome actor. Love to see them come back as well. And there's enough story threads there. I'd love to see the creatures from Shadow Realms. I don't think we ever got a name of those. Yeah, but
they never got a name for them at all.
But they left, and we were told we will be back.
Ooh.
But I will say, if I can just kind of throw a little aside about that episode, there was a very similar episode of Strange New Worlds called Those Who Walk in the Shadows or something like that, where there were a bunch of Gorn babies running around a crashed ship. And the answer to that conundrum that they came up with was kill them all. And they did. And in the Orville, when they found a way to eliminate these aliens, Ed asked the question, can't we offer them a way to leave peaceably? Right. And they did. And I'm actually getting a little choked up right now because that's the message. That's what I want to hear. They are different. Yes, we've been in conflict, but we don't have to carry that conflict on to genocide. Yeah. We can find a way out of this and find a better way forward. And that's the kind of messaging that I'd like to see more of.
Which brings me up to something I just thought about when you said that. If you look at that terminology and that scenario in the Orville, if you ever watched the original Star Trek episode Arena, when Kirk battles the Gorn at the very end, the guy, like the omnipotent or whatever, the future, the people, Metrons, yeah. He's like, he was inspired that he didn't kill the Gorn, so he let him live. So that was kind of like maybe in the future humanity can evolve faster and better and all that. So that was kind of the same thing. I just reminded myself of that.
Yeah, I would like to see Anaya on the ship. That would be interesting, and how the crew would react to that.
That's her Krill forming, right?
Yeah.
It's a true form.
That would be cool.
I often go back to Gordon's time travel episode.
Great episode.
For development of that character, but I need to see him also grow more as a character.
Yeah.
To get past that point, because that episode was whenever it sealed the deal for me that this is real science fiction. This asked the question, what if? I've got to make a choice. Do I allow my crew member to stay and destroy all of reality, or do I bring him back and destroy the character? And I don't know that he's gotten over that point. It looks like he may have, but we don't know. That story hasn't been told.
It could be eating him up inside a little bit, because Ed did tell him what happened. And maybe he was like, at the time he was like, it's fine. But, maybe it's kind of eating up at him a little bit.
It was a little funny because, the Gordon that they retrieved never lived through that.
Right.
So when he was like, wow, I had my dream woman for 10 years with a son named Ed and another one on the way. Weird, right? And just kind of shrugged it off. And I was like, I think as in love as Laura as Gordon was, I think there would have been a little bit more of a pause and said, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then maybe, like you said, maybe that grows on them and kind of tries to find a way to make that a reality going forward. I would love to revisit that storyline, because the episode for me that hooked me as this is more than just a sci-fi show was Lasting Impressions. Mm-hmm. Like that, for me, changed everything in how I viewed the Orville. Mm-hmm. And it was just a great episode. I don't know, just a beautiful episode about people and how you may want something, but the timing may be off, the conditions might be off, and you just gotta let it go. And it's the hardest thing you can do.
Gordon's character is written a lot like Harry Kim. I feel like they marry together real well, just with Harry's struggles that he dealt, even though he stayed innocent his entire life. It just happens
maybe some parallel universes like a fleet admiral or something.
Possibly,
Well, he did get to be captain, but then Janeway destroyed that timeline. So congratulations,
that was
Harry Kim.
Timeless.
You're an ensign again.
That was brilliant.
Oh, that was Endgame, wasn't it? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, Endgame.
We're going to go to the next question, then we'll have audience participation again. Where do we stand with issues? We asked that one. Common themes within the Orville universe. Just common themes that you're seeing in the Orville universe that carry over to other science fiction or things that you've seen.
Common things.
I would say coexistence. You know, we have these aliens that are representatives of us. You know, we have folks that are maybe overly tied to their traditions and don't progress philosophically, I'll say. We have folks that are misogynistic to the point that they surgically alter their women to prevent them from participating in their society. Those people are us. We have those people with varying degrees of that philosophy, and we have to find a way to, you know, convince, converse, tolerate, evolve, and move forward in a way that provides us a path for coexistence and for mutual betterment. And I think that's really, you know, at least with season 3, that was the theme, the overarching theme.
I think that one thing that stands out is the kind of encouragement of rational discussion, especially with like the leaders on the ship. You know, they encourage the friends and the people on the ship to question, criticize, and reflect. And I think that's really good to have that. Yeah.
You brought up that this morning, the reliance on facts, on truth, on science, on pulling yourself away from these emotional decisions. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Plus, like, if you think about, like, you know, kind of getting along, kind of like the relationships, you've got the Kalon and everything. A lot of them didn't like Isaac because he had been, you know, they're basically trying to kill everybody, right? So this kind of maybe in the future in season 4, they could maybe do something even more with his character or something like that.
Yeah, with Isaac. Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I think there might be, you know, there are Kalon that are, you know, eligible for the upgrade, right? The emotion upgrade. Isaac wasn't, sadly, although Mark Jackson was awesome in that role when he had it. We could see Kalon on the ship that have the upgrade.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe a Kalon on the ship has the upgrade and likes the ship's chief medical officer. And we'll see where that goes.
Is Isaac jealous, maybe?
A jealous Isaac. I don't know where we're going with that. I go to the mirrors in current affairs, and I look at the episode where they had to vote on things.
Up and down, yeah.
Up and down.
Majority rule.
Majority rule. And it reminds me a lot of how we in society now with social media, TikTok, all this, we like or we don't like something, and we're very vocal about it. It just seems like that told a story before we got to it, and now society mirrors what happened in the show a little bit. We're not killing people or anything like that yet, but...
Yeah, so only one statue was violated in the making of that episode. But the interesting part was that, you know, 2017, they were starting to see that. You know, we had David A. Goodman on the show, and he, you know, is looking at, you know, cancel culture and the way that, you know, popular opinion can sway so quickly based on a momentary lapse of judgment.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, is that reality? Yes. Is that fair? For some things, maybe. For most things, probably not.
Yeah.
And how is that? And again, how is it? Maybe not right here today, right now, but what if we carry this behavior to its extreme?
Or into the
what would that
future,
look like?
too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from the audience on that. Yes. Hello.
How's it going?
Very cool.
Oh, look at that.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So your favorite character is?
My question is, we've been talking about all these great things that the Orville has done. Are there things that you personally feel that the Orville has failed on? Like topics or relationships or whatever that?
Panelist. Panelist.
That's a hard question.
There's one episode, a season 1 episode pretty early on called Firestorm, where Alara had an opportunity to save somebody in engineering, and then was fearful of a fire and didn't jump in. It felt like it was her fault that didn't happen. And then we go through this whole episode with spiders and clowns and other things. That we realized at the end they had kind of wiped her memory, and it was a holodeck episode. So I think the point that was trying to be made was, if you get knocked off a horse, get back on. Okay, I get that. But what they were really doing was taking somebody that went through a traumatic experience that had PTSD and said the best way to handle that is put them back in another traumatic experience.
Yeah.
So I felt like that episode sent at best mixed signals, and at worst a very unfortunate way to deal with trauma.
I think that Gordon's episode where he lost his family was pretty hard to swallow. I would like to see that maybe Gordon find love, so it is kind of easier, to have to realize that he went through that. I think that one was a difficult episode.
I like to see maybe some more development with the character of Isaac. I mentioned that before, but the character of Bortus, like his husband left. Maybe he could, I don't know about find love, I'm saying like maybe there's some way he could, some character development there might be improved. They use him a lot for comedy, but maybe something like Worf and TNG, there's a lot of depth to that character I think there's left to be developed.
I think the biggest disappointment is Alara leaving.
Yeah.
We know why she left, but having that character go and bring someone in, I felt a little disappointment in that. Do we have any more audience comments before I move on to? We're good. So,
Right here.
Oh, we have potential. Oh, we have a question. Yes.
Kind of a remark. So I gave up accordion lessons in the mid-'60s so that I would not miss the Star Trek. Back in the day when, so there's no airing broadcast on Star Trek episode. We would see it again. It was on reruns. So I'm a diagonal Star Trek devotee. Decades past. The sequel series all came and went, and I loved them, but along came Orville, and I said, I really hate Seth MacFarlane. I saw the first few episodes of Family Guy, and I said, what is with this guy? It's big, But he has evolved into this storyteller, premier, excellent, imaginative fellow that I binge-watched the Orville with my family, and I said, this series is doing for me the same. I'm being left with the same impressions of it as the original Star Trek. I was dumbfounded, in awe. So it is a remarkable thing, because yes, every episode, you can turn someone's personal fluke into a whole show. And again, one thing, a lot of programming now is a series-long arc, which I can't topic. I love standalone stories.
Episodic.
And Orville does that to a total degree. It is just amazing series. So,
Yep.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that nice blend of character development with episodic stories. I think they really, really nail that. Back in February at the Saturn Awards, which is the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror, and Action now too, Seth was presented with the Robert Forster Award, which is kind of a Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, he thought it was weird that he was getting it at 50, but, it's maybe still a little young to get it.
William Shatner give that to him?
He did, yeah. William Shatner presented it. But Seth said doing Family Guy and American Dad gives him the privilege of making Cosmos and the Orville. Like, that's, I think, where his heart is. Like, that's the important work that he wants to do. And you've got to do some things in order to be able to do other things. And the Orville is the thing he gets to do.
So what you're saying is when Alex Kurtzman's contract expires, bring Seth MacFarlane in to be the showrunners for the franchise.
And stars Captain Rivers.
There you go. We got one more question I want to ask of you. What potential story elements would you, as a person, like to see happen should a season 4 occur? Not the stories that have been wrapped up, but how do you go back and talk about some of the earlier stories, the minor plot points, stuff like that, touch on things that we saw, jar pickles, whatever the case might be? What are you hopeful that will be shown in season 4? What would you speculate we could see?
I would like to see them go back to that ship from If the Stars Should Appear. And I want to see how they're doing, because like they got introduced to the whole universe, so I want to see if they're learning how to fly.
Where their journey goes. That reminded me most of Next Generation, just how that whole story was exposed and told, and how at the end you see the ship open and they see space for the first time. You could have easily put the Enterprise in that situation, and that would have been Next Generation.
I love If the Stars Should Appear. That was about episode 4, I think, of season 1, and that one just really showed what the show was capable of. That's an excellent idea. I would love to see Sympathy for the Devil, the novella, get filmed. It was sort of unfilmable during the pandemic, because normally when things are shot, kind of World War II type of epics, they're shot in Europe. Budapest is very popular with filmmaking. Other places, they just couldn't pull that off during the pandemic. So I'd love to see that get filmed. There's just a few other little stories. I'd love to get, we got the Kaelon backstory, which was phenomenal to see how they, evolved into their genocidal selves. But what I would love to see is a Moclan backstory, because they considered themselves to be an all-male species. Clearly they were not. So what did they do to become this ostensibly all-male species where they shut down their women surgically or hid them away, so they could have this male-dominated society? I'd like to know how they evolved into that, how that happened. I have some ideas, but my ideas don't matter.
They do.
I don't know, like, have to go more into depth in this episode. I always thought the episode where they went into the 2D universe was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some aliens or something they could live in that like they could bring back or something. I just thought it was gorgeous to see it on 2D in that.
Yeah.
And Elise's video game, the Orville 2D experience, is based on that episode. So.
Yeah.
Tell us all about the game.
Yeah, where can we get the game at? Where can you download it and play it?
So the 2D one is on itch.io and it's free. We've just got it on PC now, but the 3D one, I'm making it for PC, but hoping to expand into other platforms like Xbox and PlayStation and Switch.
What about iOS or Google Play possible?
On the phone?
Yeah,
that would be good.
Really cool.
That would be cool.
And it's free of charge, right? There's no cost.
Yeah.
So I'll put a link in our video description whenever this is available, so you can go download and check that out.
And it's a development, something development you're working on?
Phoenix Development.
Phoenix Development.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask this final question to all of you. Was season 3 a good way to go out? Will you be satisfied if this is the end?
I'll go ahead. I'm not satisfied. I want to see more. What about you?
I definitely want to see more, but there was something about the wedding, Ed and Kelly holding hands, Gordon strumming a little James Taylor into an acoustic guitar, seeing the ship fly off into the space sunset. That was really pretty awesome. When we were, Jessica, my podcast partner, and I got to go to the premiere of season 3, and we were chatting with David Goodman, and we asked him what the end of season 3 looked like. And he said, because there's always the possibility of ending something on a cliffhanger. And then, as we all know, we have very favorite shows that end on a cliffhanger and never come back. And he just said, you'll be very satisfied. And maybe he planted that bug in my head at that point, but I found the end of that was just slow clap, God, I hope we get more. But that was awesome.
I don't want to be satisfied. I want to be fulfilled. Fulfilled. Elyse?
Yeah, I think it was perfect. I love that episode. Obviously, I want to see more because there's so much left unsaid. But I think that it was a really nice cherry on top of the season.
Audience? Who wants to see more? Show of hands.
Nice.
Yes, let's do it.
Why? Who's going to tell me why?
Well, I mean, to go what you were saying, I felt that season 3 also came at a time just in the world where it was nice to get something that ended on a high note. Because everything felt very, very dark. But you'd love to see more because they also, being a person that, like, the world that they created and whatnot, there's like these new alliances that just happened and whatnot, there's huge implications for what that actually means, So it's like, that's really juicy stuff that you can really get into.
Definitely stuff.
Yeah.
And like you said, the whole thing with Gordon, they wrapped that up where it was like where the real Gordon was just like, oh, okay, well, that's weird, But it would be cool where if he had that idea, he would like maybe try to go back into the holodeck, and try to rebuild that relationship, knowing that it was actually something that was possible. So like you can have these really interesting character arcs that can further develop the way that. And the way it ended, if they never said or received before it never happened, I think it was a good job.
I would like to hear from someone who hasn't spoken yet.
I agree that I think it was grand and amazing, but there were a lot of new threads that you were developing, and to cut it off there, like, look at all these cool things, and then we're never talking about it again, be happy. And that's how I sort of felt like, oh, that was warm, but like, I wanted to know more about all the stuff you say you're going to develop, and then season 4 was like, not happening. I was like, no.
Yeah.
It's got to answer questions.
Just so we head into blue dress.
Yes.
So I want to see how the marriage evolves, especially with the boys and forgave him for his mother's sake. But who's to say how much PTSD he really does have and what that's going to as his home?
Yeah, that's a very interesting story.
And that opening scene of season 3 with Marcus dealing with the nightmares was so amazingly well done.
Yeah, it was a good shot. And isn't Talea in the prison on the ship? Right? Didn't they capture her?
Well, I think she let out.
She was arrested. She was in the ship's brig. She had the conversation with Ed. If you ever want to see your daughter again, you may want to let me go.
Yeah.
And I think he said something along the lines like, "You can't be serious. You're using her as a bargaining chip."
Yeah.
And I think that was the last we saw of her.
Yeah.
So I'm sure she's in a union prison somewhere.
So if I may pose the question, would you be satisfied or fulfilled if instead of it being another series, there would be a main movie?
Like Serenity from Firefly.
Yeah, Star Wars.
Possibly. But it's hard to tell everything you want to see in just a couple of hours.
And season 3 was like each episode was its own movie, really.
It was
So-
longer, and there was no commercials too. It was streaming. So.
Yeah.
So I want to mention, because we're running short on time, that if you want to continue the discussion, we have an Orville Facebook group that is on there, and you can ask anything you want. I put up some great memes if you like those kind of things. There's so much left to talk about in the Orville that we could spend days and years doing that. We just don't have all the time. But I do invite. There is another panel this afternoon at the library if you like the Orville. It's a little bit of a hike, but you can make it to the library, and they'll love to talk more about Orville with you. I want to thank my panelists. I want to thank you guys for spending. Today's my birthday, so I appreciate you coming here and spending my special day with me and taking part in that. And it's just awesome. We're going to have this on this page in a couple weeks. So check it out. If you asked a question and participated, I have a gift for you. So come by and see me, and I think we're done, unless y'all have any final thoughts.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it.
Yeah, just final thoughts. I mean, it's when you're speaking in front of people, it's always fine to pick one person out of the audience, friendly face to kind of make eye contact with. The "No need to fear the banana" T-shirt was my
We never
warm
need to
blanket
fear it.
today. So thank
That banana right there.
Solid gold.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and we have banana. Thank you so much, everybody. Go have a great convention. We'll see you maybe next year, and let Comic-Con know if you enjoyed the panel so we can come back. We had a great time. Thank you, everybody.